Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Destiny Google Hangout. I'm your host today, Mike McDonald, and I'm here with the wonderful Andrea Teal. And today we are looking at Ex Machina. Now, for those of you who don't know the movie Ex Machina, I'm sorry because it's a good movie and you should definitely check it out. But that said, there will be a lot of spoiler alerts, so it is a really good movie. Maybe you want to, take a note of this link and come back to it later because it's a really good movie and we're gonna totally spoil it for you. So if that's you, maybe get out of here. Okay, with that said, Andrea, I'll bring it over to you. Why don't you first tell us what the name Ex Machina stands for, and then give us just a little synopsis, if you will, of the movie.
Sure. So actually, the name comes from Deus Ex Machina, which is a Latin phrase, or it comes from the Greek and Roman times of when there was basically an intervention, like a divine intervention from God. So if the humans were doing a certain thing and he didn't like it, he, she, whatever it was interrupted by a switch in the plot, basically. So, but it's interesting that the words machina, which is like machine, and this movie is about AI and the creation of the artificial intelligence or the machine. And to me, the biggest question of the movie was, who is the machine? Was it the programmer, the creator, or the actual machine, or was it both? And I would be bold enough to say it's the latter, and we can discuss that. But basically, it's about a man who's sort of like the Bill Gates or the Mark Zuckerberg of technology, and he has created this worldwide corporation that has all these products, and he's been working on the AI component, and he's a total recluse, and he's kind of a strange fellow in the movie, and he lives in this land by himself with a couple of his AIs that we find out later are AIs, one of his girlfriends. And he brings this guy from his network that works for him under false deceptive pretenses, thinking that he won a raffle, but actually he's using him, and he's already investigated him fully into what his preferences are and what kind of porn he watches and all that kind of stuff. And he puts him into this thing called the Turing test to test an AI that he has created. And then there's a whole plot that gets developed, and it has many twists and turns within it. And the thing that I liked about it the most is that there was these hints in the movie about the fact that we are created that way, that we are, in fact, artificial intelligence as well, which kind of gets to the point of how our minds were created and who we are as human beings and things like that. So I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Yeah, that was well explained. Definitely fast. Well, so much fascination here with this movie. What is interesting, even just in the beginning of how it comes together as the programmer who's selected as winning the prize to go, everybody was in such belief that they were all competing for this grand prize, when in actuality it was very strategically orchestrated that so and so would be the winner, because that's who he wanted to be in the experiment, like very much like a rat in a maze to a certain extent, which showcases just the point of be wary of what is given to you in a way. Now you made some interesting points there about the name of the movie and Machina, and just the point about the egomaniac, the creator there, who's a bit of a recluse. How does that reflect on, in our society, our world of humanity, the the parent-child relationship, where um, Nathan, the creator, like the Mark Zuckerberg type character, is very much like a parent to the AI and the main character in the movie Ava, which he develops.
Right. Well, it's sort of a indication of our society, how it's always pyramidally structured, if that's a word, pyramidally. That there is somebody at the top, like the Pope or Papa, or the father figure, the God. That we have that throughout every piece of literature, and that we tend to go that way. But instead of looking at being equals, this guy was definitely playing out the God in himself, that he wanted to create something. He's reclusive, he's creating something quite amazing, but what's missing is that he's not looking at what can I do to better this society, what can I do to create that will enhance life for every human being. It's more, I'm God, I'm going to put you to a test, to see what you think of it, how you react to it, and I'm manipulating you as well. I'm talking about Caleb, the tester. But in the end, it's sort of one of those tragedies, like a Greek tragedies, because his own creation kills him. So, uh,
Definitely.
so it's sort of within all of our current child things, like what. Who was Nathan really? I mean, he was a drinker. He was a pretty heavy drinker. He was a recluse. He was a megalomaniac. He was brilliant. He had all these qualities, but he wasn't using it to expand himself. He was just sort of for lack of better words, the evil creator, instead of something that could expand and assist humanity with all its woes and problems.
Right. I'm also seeing the point here too. If we look at the other main character programmer in the movie, Caleb, and how he kind of takes the role of like the child in the beginning, because he's the tester, he's being tested upon and whatnot, and Nathan is of more of more means in terms of wealth and whatnot. Like, it's his creation basically that Caleb has walked into. It's his house. Caleb doesn't have access to all the rooms in the house, or so he's told and whatnot. Nathan has set out the rules and whatnot. And, instead of there being like a really solid bond that develops, what we see happen, which parallels a lot of the relationships that exist in this world within families, where the parent and the child develop, an act of rebellion, so to speak, as the brewing and the perpetuation of war in a lot of regards.
Yeah, and what do you want to do mostly when you're a child? You want to prove how wrong your parents are.
Right. Well, that's it. Who's the biggest enemy, right? Like, what do you want to get away with, or where do you want to go? It's, you want to go away from the parents. You want to do your own thing. You don't want to be around your parents all the time. You want to grow up when you're real little, so that you don't have somebody telling you what to do or whatnot, because, well, so often the case is the dialogue is very slanted, if you will, because, well, parent is not standing as an equal, or oftentimes the patience and the regard for the child as being able to contribute and bringing new insights is often lacking. And we definitely see that a little bit in the movie with Caleb there, where
Well, he becomes devious, because he's going to save Ava, and then he's plotting and planning with her, because he just feels inferior to Nathan. And so, what do you want to do with somebody who's superior? Of course, you want to take them off their pedestal and become what they are. And so there was that polarity going on with them. And then then he found out that he was being used the whole time, and that sort of pissed him off. Because he thought he was going to be, the savior. He had the savior complex, sort of like God and Jesus, right?
Definitely. Yeah, I found that to be a cool twist within the movie because, definitely within so many movies, it's like it's that whole polarity construct that the mind thrives on so much so where it's the good guy versus the bad guy kind of thing, and it ultimately perpetuates the war and the dissonance of ourselves. And so yeah, it's kind of like suggested that you're going to be rooting for Caleb and whatnot because Nathan seems like more of a dick, pardon my language, than Caleb or whatnot. Like Caleb is sort of innocent in the beginning, and so he's good and Nathan's bad. But then what you have there is some twists and turns, and you see that Nathan's planning that he's put into this test, well, it was quite basically layered in its deviousness, and so it's not just on the surface there, where basically he was planning on Caleb's deception and basically less than what's best attitude,
Mm-hmm.
which is an interesting starting point that so often is taken, that point of apathy in our world where we just accept that, well, we accept results or behaviors that are like less than optimum.
Yeah. But then what happens is that the female, the AI, actually outdoes both of them, right? Even
Yeah,
if he's creating it in Nathan's image and is devious, and then she takes everything that Caleb is doing for her benefit. It makes him think that she's with him, but she's not. She's planning her escape and into the world. So she uses the both of them, and it's kind of, I guess there's a lot of females who could probably relate to that, where they've been put in compromised positions and they have to use their minds and to try to outwit, and I think a lot of women would enjoy that, that they were being outwitted and that she was using them.
now that just makes me think about the point that because the way the story pulls you along, you kind of think that, okay, Ava is now gonna help Caleb get out, and they're gonna like run away from Nathan together, as like the notion that even though Caleb has done some bad stuff, he's not ultimately as bad as Nathan. But what the story does, interestingly enough, is it kind of exposes the point that, well, they've both accepted and allowed things here that aren't really cool and whatnot. And in a way, um, it's definitely interesting questions where it poses that Ava being an AI, perhaps just simply was working with the information here, and just simply, you know, seeing the design like of both Caleb and Nathan. Well, that she mimicked the design herself. It's like this, the reflex reactionary play out where Nathan is trying to do this, uh, and then Caleb is copying that, monkey see, monkey do. And then Ava, who's, definitely is disregarded as being intelligent to the extent of either Caleb or Ava, pulls one over on both of them playing the same, monkey see, monkey do kind of game.
But isn't that with everything in life? Like when people go to work at every day, they're playing office politics. They're playing who's doing what to who. How can I further my own agenda? How to, that's basically what people do 99.9% of the time. Is they're not thinking how can we work together? How can we best have results that's good for everybody? It's always how can I get to the top? How can I get beyond that person? How can I use their weaknesses to further my agenda? So that I think that's what people could relate to, and they were probably cheering on the AI. you know, that she had done that, right? There's people who were doing that. There's probably guys who are in shock that when Caleb was locked in his room at the end. I know I wasn't there. So, you know, it's another Hollywood thing to get your emotions going, your mind going. I mean, it was entertaining and all those things, and it would be interesting. You know, probably wouldn't be a big money winner, but if you actually use intelligence to make this a better world for everybody, instead of the old divide and conquer, fight against each other, who's going to win, who's going to be on top, that we're so used to.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a common trend in movies so often where it's ultimately you know, conflict resolution exists through conflict in a way where there's a continued, well, dissolvement, a dissonance, so to speak, where, you know, there's still like fragments left untied or undone, but problems still exist. Whereas, like you say, if, you know, intelligence technology was used really as an ultimate source of good, you know, it seems to me like it could really be basic mathematics in a lot of ways, where it's simply, you know, working with different points and just seeing like, well, how can we come to solutions on it in kind of like an open source type way, where it's a collaborative effort, and it's definitely many people are involved and able to contribute to ideas and making new ways, new pathways possible,
Yeah,
which
it would
which
have.
is
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Well, it would have been interesting if they would have had at the end, instead, that she put them in a room together and said, "Okay, you created me as intelligence, so I'm going to tell you guys something. You know, hey Nathan, you're a genius, or this and that. How come you live way out in the middle of nowhere and you're not contributing to a society where millions of people are starving and we're destroying our planet at a huge rate?" And Caleb, like, why don't you get together with Nathan and work together and find solutions together, instead of playing games with each other and who's going to win and who's going to be alpha dog. And you know, that would have been an interesting ending.
Yeah,
Or maybe when she went out into society, like, okay, I'm going to start teaching people. It was more that she was going for the experience of what it was out in the city, instead of like, okay, I'm going to take these humans and teach them something.
right, where, yeah, totally used for like a point of good, or like she has them here and whatnot, and, you know, she comes back and she explains basically what could have been funny also, and quite comical and cool, opening further that question of, you know, what is a human, what is life, what is common sense, you know, how do we direct new possible ways that don't yet exist as solutions, by, you know, if she were to come back or go into, you know, civilization and say like, look, you know, a lot of work has been done here. These are my final redesigned robots, whatnot. Like, where she comes across as the human, you know, per se, like, and tells the whatever tale, where she's the human, and she comes and she showcases Nathan and Caleb as both the AIs who appear so lifelike, and, you know, it's set up in such a way where, you know, they're told that, you know, Caleb and Nathan are both going to try to convince you or tell you that they're not AI, and that the AI is pulling one over on you, and that da 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 da, like, you know, this whole thing. And, you know, I mean, that could have been quite a comical finish as well, because, you know, really, what's the difference in the application, in the way you see the behavior? It's working with information, and the particular inputs, the coding, so much so, is based on particular values. And well, how we exist here as humans, so much so, is it's like the war starting point, like the war, the family, the conflict, the polarized mind from the point of the emotion and feeling, where it's the high and low play out all the time, and rational critical thought, like actually looking and being able to assess the information you're working with in a way where you're able to move it around like building blocks, uh, doesn't exist so much, because we're kind of stuck in the muck of what we exist as, what we are continuing to evolve our destruction into in a lot of ways.
Well, I think the whole a really good point to start from is defining the word intelligence. Like we use the
Definitely.
word military intelligence, which is an oxymoron. There is no military intelligence. Like the only intelligence that there would be militarily is to get rid of it
Right.
entirely. So, what is intelligence? Is creating something that can have stimulus response and you can train it like a monkey. Is that intelligence? No. I mean, true intelligence is to wake up and say, hey, you know what? We're on this fast moving train going over a cliff. Let's not pretend here. Let's be real and honest about it. And everybody, stop what you're doing. If you're destroying the planet, if you're, killing tons of animals or whatever you're doing, and let's look at solutions that where we can all live on a sustainable planet. As they said in the United States, if everybody lived like Americans, we'd need 5 planets to sustain it. So there's something wrong in the equation. So is that, what are the equations that they use to create a robot or artificial intelligence? They're not the equations of oneness and equality and working together as human beings to find a way through this mess that we're in. So we're going to theaters, like in my last thing about watching watching earthquakes, and it's just another oh, this is an interesting story, boy versus girl, all those conundrums and conflicts and things. There is no leadership in the movie industry to, like, okay, let's come up with how we can demonstrate a different world where people don't starve, where there isn't wars, where there's true intelligence.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it really reflects the point very much so of the lack of intelligence we as humanity so much exist as in that regard. Because, just the way you're describing intelligence, it's clear that, true intelligence is a point of responsibility. And if we, look at responsibility as a point, an ability to respond, and it makes me think of the genes in the cell, like intelligence, like the genes basically are like the program to a certain extent as how to work and whatnot, and the cells are the potential to a certain extent as how they're going to respond as what needs to be done. Which makes me think of, specifically like a type of cell like mesenchymal cells, where their ability is quite expansive in that, they exist all over the body, yet their specific function is as a worker cell, so to speak, where they can basically do whatever needs to be done. So, that to me is somewhat reflective of, true intelligence, so to speak, as to be able to look at the situation, basically read the information, so read effectively what is here, and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, kind of thing. And to take that further, like what you're saying, in the movies, it's so much what we have is just get some buttons pushed or get pulled and turned in a few different directions, twisted up, kind of thing, and then that's that. And then kind of the focus doesn't go all the way necessarily into the solutions, but just kind of questioning a little bit the way we were pushed and pulled around, but not taking it all the way into, how can this be a prosperous fruition an end result in utilizing what is here in a way that is best.
Mm-hmm. So it all really starts with you looking at your own intelligence, and are you being intelligent in what you do, and looking at your own programs, and seeing, oh, how are you created, what are the programs and systems inside of yourself that are actually detrimental to a beneficial world. You know, the only way that we can start this process is to look at our own selves, and you know, that's what the Destiny process is about, is that we start step by step taking apart those systems that are not beneficial, that are polarized, that are conflictual, that are adversarial, instead of um, being bonding with another being and seeing how we can make a difference together. You know, we're all guilty of that on many levels, on many dimensions. And you know, you have to start somewhere and be self-honest and see, okay, where am I at? Am I like a Nathan? I know I have those tendencies. I have the tendencies of the Caleb too. I like to be devious and try to get the Nathans off their pedestal. You know, I like to be the robot girl, you know, who outsmarts everybody.
And that's really ultimately the cool thing about the Desteni I process, and walking specifically the Desteni I process light, or taking it even to a more serious level, taking the Desteni I process pro, where you walk through your mind constructs and whatnot, because the starting point ultimately is that of self-reflection here, and that one, all is one is equal, because like you're saying, we place, you know, ourself in the shoes of each other, and so we you know, we see ourselves as it, you know, tag, you're it. Well, you know, playing even just the game tag with that starting point of, well, you know, what do you want to be it as, or what are you resistant towards, you know, seeing or regarding yourself as it? Because, you know, I know for myself that was kind of a point in my processes, you know, daring to even consider myself as, you know, a bad guy or whatever, and not, or seeing, you know, even the construct, so to speak, of, you know, the nice guy and whatnot, and the whole polarity play of that, where, you know, we find ways in which to create separation in various forms of relationship. Uh, and going back to the movie there, like you were saying earlier, you know, Nathan and Caleb are, you know, two peas in the pot, two guys that basically, based on their skills and their abilities, you know, could be great points of support for one another, because their skills could really enhance each other's skills, and thus, you know, contribute to a very prosperous, fruitful life for everyone here as their contribution. So it's interesting.
7.2 billion people did that. I mean, if you take
Yeah.
those two people that could do that, but see, that's the irony of this. Everybody on this planet, they're all competing with each other to be the top alpha dog or whatever, instead of just putting that aside and putting their egos aside in the competition, and actually working together. It's so far and few between. We know that that's what the answer is, but somehow we've isolated ourselves and separated ourselves so much from each other, and you know, nobody's taking the first steps to say, okay, I've been an asshole, I've been you know,
Right.
whatever, and I'm sorry. Be humble, learn how to work with each other, admit your mistakes. How many people cover up their mistakes, and you know, stop being devious, stop having agendas to further your own agenda or your self-interest. They're all very simple, and yet they're probably the hardest things for human beings to work on.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's quite fascinating, really, because the more we allow ourselves to look at these, seemingly very, very, very basic points, there is some comic relief within it all, because it is quite silly the more we become self-honest with ourselves, and it stops being a projection outward about them or they or whoever, and it becomes about me, itself, like me, and then we, basically, as seeing ourselves all as it together as one, not all these separate its and bits and pieces, but coming together to forge that, starting it, that we're all starting it. And so let's make it a purposeful starting it, and realizing that we're all playing the game tag here together. We might as well enjoy it, become it together in a way that's best for everyone here.
I think bringing it back to the movie, and the most poignant moment was when Nathan had a knife in his back. I went, oh shit, oh shit.
Right.
Creation, what he had programmed from his own mind, into something else, killed him in the end. And
right.
That's the moments that change for me, is when I go, oh shit, I'm actually doing what's counter to my own benefit, just to be right, just to be righteous, just to prove that I know something over somebody, or I've had a few of those knives in my back. I've done shit, it's to actually admit that to yourself, and for some reason human beings have a hard time with that one, but it's don't let your creation stab you in the back. Basically, that's the message I got from that.
Definitely. I mean, it's very revealing, into the point just of even just questioning his whole existence, right? Because it kind of was, in a way, a big time loop, where from his mind perspective, it was taking him up the pedestal and becoming so greater, grand. And the notion, like, the human race, we're all competing against each other, like, to get to the top of the pyramid or top of the pedestal, like the game, King of the Castle, whereas everyone's fighting. So, okay, you get to the top, and then, yeah, you're knocked down, somebody else takes your place, takes the throne, and the game of thrones, so to speak, continues, missing the whole point all along, and missing life along the whole way, basically. Whereas, what was I really doing, working, expressing as myself here? Because for him, it was all about, like, getting to that point of status, so to speak, in a way where his status was deemed to be more grandiose and of the ultimate superior notion and regard, as like to become king.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's I have a question for you, Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
Or go ahead before I ask you this question. It seems like you have something you want to say.
No, go ahead. Ask
Oh, okay. So what is your advice, or what words of support can you give to somebody who maybe is watching us hang out and is new to even Destiny, has heard us mention it and whatnot, who's interested in exploring, what is Destiny Process, what is Destiny I Process Lite, what is Destiny I Process Pro, what does it mean to really explore oneself and self-reflect? What words of support can you give them as they make the decision to really commit to the journey of life here?
Well, I think for me, there's 2 points in my life where the first one was when I sort of started looking around me when I was little and said, there's something really wrong with this place. There's something going on. I want to find out what's going on. What happened here? Why are people, like, why are my parents saying one thing and then lying when they leave? And everything seems so duplicitous, and there's always some controversy or whatever. There was that, and the other maxim I sort of had was, if you're going to be living with yourself all your life, wouldn't you want to know who that person really is? And so I always set upon this path to discover that, and I did many different modalities and self-awareness things, and I can definitively say, after everything that I did, there is nothing compared to this process. It puts the mirror right in your face. You can deny it for a while, you can go back, you can pretend that you didn't see what you saw, but at some point, you're going to have to face yourself, whether it's here now or later, but at some point, you're going to have to do that. So is it easy? No, it's very difficult. It's the hardest thing you can possibly do, but the rewards are so amazing, because what you discover is that who you are is way bigger than what you ever even imagined. But you have to get beyond your self-imposed limitations. And what the Destiny process does is take you to those limitations first. You see how the mind is constructed, how you've created the prison around yourself and separated yourself, and how you're living at the lowest possible potential, basically, like 1% maybe. And if you follow that path and those instructions that are really well placed, and you have really good support, because there's people who've walked through it themselves, and they know what you're up against, and they're there 100% for you to find your potential. It's pretty amazing. Like, from everything that I did before I found Destiny, it didn't even go on the scale compared to what I have experienced myself in the last 7 years that I've been walking the process. And I would say that I'm just beginning, because it's eternal. It's quite an amazing thing. So not only that, the rewards, the benefits is that you become a member of the world, of society, and you start interacting with people in a way that we can come up with solutions, and we put our agendas aside and look for solutions. So you interconnect with people all over the world, different ages, of people that I would have never had anything to do with in age groups and countries and stuff, that I've become friends with, and we look for solutions together. And isn't that more fulfilling than trying to separate yourself from all of life? Is to actually embrace life, and to real relationships with people, real friendships, and real solutions. So that's what it's really about. It's everything that I've ever wanted, which is to find out about myself and to make a difference in the world.
Awesome. Yeah, very well said. Yeah, it's definitely quite ironic in a lot of ways. So often the phrase is said. Wow, world, it's really a small place. The world's really such a small thing, and that kind of just reflects on that limitation, like you said, like that 1% mentality we accept and allow within ourselves, when really, as we walk this process, we see the all-inclusiveness of everything. That, wow, there's so much here. There's just so much. This process is huge. Wow, there's, what do I even know? How much do I not know? What I don't even know. What what don't I know? Questioning, just so much. And it's like you said about the point of connecting with others, and there's definitely, we're all alone in this, but at the same time we're all alone here together. And so there's definitely a wholesomeness to it, as that point of, well, we basically self-substantiate ourselves within this process, that taking the authorship to write ourselves into play here, as we give ourselves responsibility into basically creating our very role, our very path, our very purpose into rereading or redoing what we have here, stopping the destructive creation and begin anew.
Yeah. So, there's always this thing in spirituality where people talk about, I am another you, or namaste, I'm another yourself, or we are all one. It's all just lip service. I used to say those kind of things like namaste, or,
Right.
but I never experienced really that. In this, you actually do. You actually see that everybody is you and that you need them to get the results that you want, which is a world that works for everybody together. So you have to work in partnership with other people. You can't isolate yourself. You can't hope and wish and pray and give lip service. You actually have to act and be here in the world. And if that isn't a good reason to live, I don't know what else is. You can go and get into addictions or watching movies or entertainment and all those things, but that gives such a limited amount of life. What real life is to realize your potential and to assist other people in realizing their potential.
Definitely. Well said. Well, any final thoughts, Andrea? I think we're over our time looking at it here.
Yeah, well, I think I pretty well said what I'd like to say.
Awesome.
It's a good movie, but watch it, see what it stimulates for yourself, see where you could go from there. If you were going to create a movie, what would it be? Out of the conflict into solutions.
That's a great point, Andrea, and definitely encourage everybody out there to take on that point, the story writing or the new script. How is it in fact that we can write the solution for ourselves as each other here in a way that is best. I mean, that's kind of a cool undertaking, really, to give ourselves a purpose in this life to say, well, I've decided I'm going to look at how to solve these issues here. I've noticed that there's lots of issues to choose. I mean, there's not really a shortage of issues at the moment, unfortunately. So fortunately, there's lots of choice here for people to basically choose your area of interest or newfound expertise. Yeah, so play with the work with the play, and develop that responsibility in and as the solution, as we are the question, the answer, solution, which is the process in and of itself. So thank you, Andrea, for being here. It was a real pleasure, and I know this is a big topic that we've opened up here today in this movie. I'm sure we could talk. Thank you, the viewers, for being here, and that's it for us here today.
Okay, let's do it again.
Awesome.
Okay.
See ya.
Okay, bye.